Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic James Explains, we're looking at Kentrosaurus. Now, Kentrosaurus is a member of the stegosaur family, so what's the big deal with that? Well, it turns out, in my experience, people understand different species of dinosaurs, as in Diplodocus and Triceratops and Stegosaurus, but they don't know that there's actually subgroups and families and everything, so uh, that's why we're doing this video. Also, user O Banana, whose image is Donkey Kong, requested Ceratosaurus, which I did before, and Kentrosaurus, which I'm doing now. So your first exposure to Kentrosaurus would be one of these that what I call the 10-pack dinosaur kit. When you first look at it, you can tell it's not a carnivore. It's on, it's on, but it's often hard to tell. People think it's an ankylosaur sometimes. I've heard that before, but there are spikes here instead of plates, and so this is actually supposed to be a Kentrosaurus, or at least I diagnosed it as such, given its features. One thing to point out too is that there's two spines on the hips is really unusual. That's something that people, and when they first found Kentrosaurus, it was between 1909 and 1912 with a German expedition into Tanzania, Africa, East Africa, and over 3 years they found all these different skeletons, Giraffatitan included, and they found a lot of Kentrosaurus together. It doesn't mean that they were in a herd or anything. They just found a lot of these bones in one area. Which reminds me of the word taphonomy, the Russian word for between death and fossilization, how the animals may have died somewhere, got washed down river. We don't know. It wasn't proof they actually died together, per se. But the idea here is that they put this little spike here on the hips. In reconstruction, we now think the spikes were actually on the actual shoulders, so I'll show you later on. But the next one I had experience with was this thing called Dino Riders in the 80s. I was a kid, really, really young. I didn't know what that was. I rediscovered it on the internet. But Dino Riders, pretty much, you would get a dinosaur figure and they have armor you put around it, and then little humanoid figures could ride it into battle. It's I always imagine they're playing this, and the night begins to shine. The Teen Titans, music. They're running into battle with the dinosaurs. I don't know. I'm a nerd. So this was one of my first nice bigger Kentrosaurus figures, and the idea here is that I didn't buy it down. I bought it on eBay. But the really neat thing was it had these row of plates in the front and spikes in the back. Now, overall, the arrangement and number of spikes and plates are incorrect in this figure, but that was really unique to me. And the idea was that, like me, just like you, just like early scientists in paleontology thought, plates of Stegosaurus, that was a norm. Stegosaurus was discovered in the 1870s during the Bone Wars. So, being the largest, actually the largest member of the Stegosaurus family, that was thought to be the norm. But the plates you're seeing here may have been for display, the ones with spines for attack. We do see that Kentrosaurus had like 40 vertebrae in the tail, so they have this really, really flexible tail, and also their center of gravity is like right here, so they can really turn. And their necks are very not long. They have the vertebrae so like they can turn, and look over their shoulders. How do you know this, right? Well, basically, you take skeletons, look at the features, you look at where muscles attach, and you figure out that the head can only turn so far given the muscles that would have been there on the neck. So it can actually go over his shoulder pretty well. Also, compared to Stegosaurus, this guy is like half the size. So Stegosaurus being really long, this guy could be like 15 feet. Stegosaurus is like 30, the biggest. But it's a good example of it. It has a beak, which is really cool. The hands, I'm really, really happy about this because Stegosaurus have 3 toes. This is one of my major things is that out of all these Stegosaurus, only a few have 3 toes. Kentrosaurus has 3 toes. And in the front part, you have these 3 prominent fingers, and then the others like little nubs that kind of disappear. That's actually pretty accurate. That's super awesome. Also, the shoulder blades are facing forward here. We don't really know how they face. They weren't, Stegosaurus plates and spines are in their skin, so they're not. They're what we call osteoderms, and osteoderm meaning bony, bony bone skin. Think of a crocodile's back armor. It's kind of like that. So we're not sure exactly how they're articulated. If you just see one laying out and you see plates in their front spikes, you get the idea. But the shoulder parts, as I said before, were thought to be on the hip. Now we know they're here actually. But anyway, so really cool model. My next one, I just bought it as a kid because I really don't like the ones like this you buy at different stores where you just has batteries, they light up and walk. But I just really wanted more Kentrosauruses. So but this guy has the old school design of spines going to the hip. But again, plates and spines here. So again, the toes are the generic 5 toes, 5 fingers, thing. No research done there. Skull is pretty much a Stegosaurus skull, not Stegosaurid, the family. Stegosaurus, like the genus. Whereas this one had the kind of smaller skull that makes the animal more So that's kind of what happened here. And like I said, I just wanted a Kentrosaurus to add to the to the family group. This guy is, they have a different name now. It was called Dinosaur Valley. So basically, they were from Toys. I found them in Toys R Us, and it has 3 toes. The hands have 4, which should probably be the 3 main and then like little nubs. But again, there's a plate in the front, the spines in the back. The tail, of course, is too short. This is something that again I complain about constantly. These tails are way too small. The tail's like half the animal's length, and the head looks just like again a stegosaurus. So if you're a toy designer and you don't really know, I get close next to kin kind of thing, but Kentrosaurus is a very thin, narrow, long skull compared to a stegosaurus. I mean, they all have short, long skulls, but this guy like more so. Then we start getting some more scientific looking ones. So Safari, of course, has this guy here, and this one I like it because it looks more like a real Kentrosaurus. Well, how will we know, right? It looks mostly like the features we see. A very small, long head. When people joke about stegosaurs having small heads and small brains as an insult, and I have to point out to humans that point to humans, yeah, because I do tours for like birds too, that a human brain is very expensive. I mean, brains in general are very expensive. We don't see large brains evolving very often, and that's because they take so much. Now, of course, your brain like runs your body, and so it's understandable. But a human brain, that's why I read about this neurology. It's like it takes in 2% of it's like 2% of your mass, but it's like a quarter or 1/5 of your energy intake kind of thing. So having a smaller brain isn't always terrible. The Stegosaurus and his cousins weren't looking at the stars or wondering about astrology. They were like astronomy. They were just like eating and sleeping and pooping. But the thing is, having a smaller head is an advantage in that if your center of gravity, you're turning and moving like that, predators want to go for your neck and your head to kill you. If your head's small, it's a smaller target, You're trying to bite this thing's head, it's really hard to get to. That's, it's a hypothesis out there. But the armor, the spines are on the shoulders. We have the plates here, the spikes in the back. This guy was at the time, most accurate Kentrosaurus. Still my top 2 out of all the guys. But this is the basic design. If you can find this guy, you're in good shape. The last one I'll go over is the Papo one. They did a flip. So this guy, of course, in action mode, kind of showing everything I mentioned before. It has the 3 toes. It has the hands have the 3 major claws and 2 little nubs on the side. Well, the 4th claw actually. The head is flexible. Spines are out. This guy's in the middle of a fight or attack or defense mode actually. But again, showing the flexibility of the tail, the flexibility of the neck. Neck probably should be a little longer though. But again, Papo out of the park. Did a really good job. So Safari and Papo are the ones that are most accurate here. If you're buying a Kentrosaurus, go with one of these 2. Do know Kentrosaurus is again about 15 feet long. It's kind of short, but it really I would depend on your scaling if you're into that kind of thing. But these are both really good models. Now, bigger picture, Stegosaurus family. These guys are not just North American, Jurassic, or now Tanzania. The Stegosaurus are actually a pretty diverse group. In the earliest Stegosaurus we know are like mid-Jurassic in England or Europe in general. So there's Stegosaurus, which again, this guy has spines and plates, and his name is being debated right now, or has been debated in the past. But again, it's it's like the Kentrosaurus plan. Another example is the first stegosaur ever discovered, which was in England, and his name, to say it properly, is Kentrosaurus. This guy, these are actually the same species, genus, but they're different. Like one is different companies. So again, you're seeing the same design though of shoulder, and then plates, and then spines on the tail. Another example that's really, really kind of well known, becoming more and more well known, is the Miragia, the Portuguese stegosaur with the long neck, the 17 neck vertebrae there. So you're seeing again plates and spines, and then of course in China, there's lots of them in China. I don't have very many of them in my collection, but these Spinosaurus, this guy has these huge, like these giant plates. And actually, this is a gift for my friend Tim McSweeney, who's a zoologist. And these giant plates here, spines there on the shoulders. So you're seeing that trend kind of going on and on here. But of course, we all know the most famous Stegosaurus of all time, Stegosaurus himself or itself. And again, it turns out like this guy is the oddball out. That most stegosaurs have a mixture of plates and spines, and our being American species or genre has only the mainly plates and only a few spines. And again, stegosaurus is one of the later stegosaurs, like these are a little bit earlier. So that could be where the evolutionary trend goes, because it is often believed that stegosaurs only lived in the Jurassic period. It turns out there's a few, one for sure, two others being debated, survivors that live in the early Cretaceous period. There's one in China like this. So, and this guy has plates. So it seems that the trend was to have armor spine, be smaller, and have armor, with spines and plates, and then over time get more to plates, basically. So Kentrosaurus, this is his kin. But again, last but not least, we're looking at his ecology, where he lives. I mentioned the expedition in 1909 to 1912 in Germany. So Kentrosaurus was one of the major finds there. The most popular find at that time was, of course, Jurassic Titan. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There is a Jurassic Titan figure being sold right now. I'm going to find it one day. Until then, Brachiosaurus will step in for us, as it has in other talks. Another example of animals that are living with Kentrosaurus. So here is our little guy, Kentrosaurus. Another example of animals living with him. There are two predators. There is a definite genre of Ceratosaurus. There's also one, an Allosaurid found in Tanzania. And again, these animals are animals like them are found in North America as well during the late Jurassic when the continents were closer. The other two examples that are one's a pterosaur called Rhephorhynchus, who's also found in parts of Europe. They're found in Tanzania, Africa. And this guy here, which was a cool find for mine personally, is a Dryosaurus. It would be about 6-7 feet long, so it would be smaller on our scale here. But these animals are all the species you're seeing here, or at least the body types you're seeing here, are found in North America as well, and something like that in Portugal. So it's kind of, we're seeing that kind of, you're looking at Tanzania, Portugal, and North America, that whole region has the same body plan. And it's unique because when you get to late Cretaceous period, the continents are so far apart, you're going to see different kind of dinosaurs, different continents. But here you're seeing the same design because Pangea is just breaking apart, So that is Kentrosaurus. Really cool animal. As usual, the video is Kentrosaurus Part 1, because who knows what new paper will come out in the future. Maybe one of you write a really cool paper or some new theory that can come back and go, aha, this thing we now know because of this one cool person. So that's it for now. Kentrosaurus. See you next time.